In my past and future experiences with teaching, I know that I'm going to come across struggling readers, and figuring out why they are struggling is the primary and important core of the process of figuring out why they are struggling. So in my past experiences, we would conduct informal and formal assessments. So this was either having conversations with the students, doing KWL charts, just getting them involved, and also doing formal assessments of dibbles and things like that. So to figure out what grade level they're on, and also figuring out culture. We would send home assessments home to figure out how can we incorporate your culture into the classroom so they'll be more interested in the reading process. And also what we're reading, can we just do some books from your culture, figuring out where the barrier, where the gap is, and why they are struggling so much. And also in my past placements, I have come across students with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, various amounts of disabilities that they struggle with reading. And being a student who has ADHD, I can relate back to these students, because I just remember in kindergarten being so frustrated in myself that I couldn't focus. And I was so not advanced as the other students. And I had to try much harder than the other students too. So I just can relate to them. And also I would incorporate my knowledge with ADHD into the classroom as well with my CTs, and give them advice hey, my teacher tried this, do you want to try this? And figure out that way to, close the gap. So actually I had a student with ADHD, and they had a reading disability, and she was not interactive, not motivated to read at all. So we actually did some assessments with her, and it was because she did not, connect to the books. So we would actually draw in her real life connections to the book, and also find out where she wanted to sit in the classroom, because environments that had a big key in me interacting. If I was not sat somewhere that I could focus, I wasn't going to be engaged. I would be looking out the window, talking to my friends. So finding out that place in the classroom environment that they can sit and they can stay still and actually be, engaged in the lesson, that is a key component as well. Also figuring out if they have a different language at home. So if they speak Spanish or Russian at home, and we're teaching English text and it's just not clicking, because at home they're predominantly speaking this language, and in school they're supposed to be speaking this language. So it gets confusing for the student. And at a certain point, you have to differentiate the instruction so it meets the student's characteristics, and you can base your instruction assessments on that, so you can close that gap and make them, more interested into the, process of reading and reading in general. In my college classroom, actually, I went to high school and I did a project called CPM. And it was basically, we chose an assessment that we wanted to do with a student that was struggling. And my student was actually in self-contained her freshman year, and she got out of self-contained because she was growing so much, and she could, excel in the general education classroom. So we actually did it, and she gained so much from it, and I differentiated the instruction. So I did basketball, just figuring out what their interest was. She loved basketball, so when we conquered a word and we gained that word, we would ball it up and say, this is no longer stressing me out, I can say this word when I'm reading. And it built on to her reading fluency as we went on. She could read more fluently. Right now she's reading at grade level text. She's reading Martin Luther King, great in class, and she's gained this confidence that I'm a good reader. And that was just the one goal that I loved. Whenever at the end of the day, she gained that confidence. But I just really think that repeated reading is just a big core instruction intervention that would be placed with struggling readers, but you also have to differentiate the instruction and the assessments. You have to get to know your student, and that's the primary with struggling readers, get to know them.